Welcome to Real, Brave, and Unstoppable. Here, you'll hear stories and inspiration about showing up in the world authentically and having the courage to create the life you want. I'm your host, Courtney Rivard. I'm a mom, recovering engineer, lover of the outdoors, and professional life coach. I help smart women just like you live happier lives full of purpose and joy by empowering them to love who they are, get unstuck, and take action toward creating the life they dream of. In other words, I help them be real, brave, and unstoppable. It is possible, and you can do it too. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Welcome back, friends, to Real, Brave, and Unstoppable. It's been a minute since I've put out a new episode. I've had a lot of crazy stuff going on in my life, so I've kind of taken a break to kind of get through it. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about not worrying so much about what other people think, or when you do know someone's thinking poorly of you or saying things about you that aren't true or are less than stellar, how to hold your head high and just don't take the high road. So one thing that I work with people on a lot, and actually work on in myself a lot, is with comparing ourselves to other people and worrying about what other people think. This is kind of related to an underlying belief that we're not enough or that other people are better than us. And another one is when you know somebody has actually said things about you that aren't true, or that are really mean, or that are really nasty. So today on the podcast, I'm going to talk about this part. It was inspired by an experience of my own, and I learned, and I'm still learning a lot about how to be classy, how to hold your head high, and how to take the high road when others are really fine just slinging mud at you, so to speak. So just to give you a little background, occasionally I talk about my partner on this podcast, but he's now my ex. And we recently broke up. And after I broke up with him, it's a long story, I won't get into it right now, but I discovered that he's been having an affair with one woman right under my nose for 2 years. And actually, he was having multiple affairs. And they'd been going on for most of the 7 years that we were together. So I discovered some text, by some stroke of luck, I discovered text messages between him and this main affair. It's crazy that I'm saying that. And the two of them said a lot of really terrible things about me. He told her a lot of lies about how crazy and unstable I am, that he and I were just roommates, and he wouldn't move out because I was so unstable and couldn't accept the fact that our relationship was over, and he was afraid I'd go insane on him, which is funny. So it's nowhere near the truth. She's a therapist, and she's totally ripped on me for being a life coach and also for the content that I share on social media. They both totally ripped apart this podcast. He's shared sensitive and confidential things that I trusted him with her and other people. And it's really hard and kind of embarrassing to know that other people know these deep, private things about me, only spun in a really negative light. So after we broke up, there was an incident in my house where I won't get into all the details, but he physically assaulted me and destroyed property in my home. His story to other people was that I came unhinged and it was all self-defense, which is hilarious because he's a big guy. There's no way I could possibly do anything to him. He painted this picture of me being this insane, crazy person to everyone he could. And I learned that he did the same thing to his last 3 exes as well. So totally a pattern. He and one of his friends talked about how I turned my ex-husband gay. Not really how it works, people. They talked about how he was trading in the old clunker for a hotter, younger, skinnier model. His friends said that I was bamboozling clients because since I was so crazy, how could I possibly coach other people? So as you can imagine, this is a lot of stuff that it just, ouch, right? Stings. It's really hard to sit back and know that people are saying these things about you without really lashing out and defending yourself, or, when none of what's being said is true. And it's so hurtful and hard to just let it happen. So I have a protective order against him right now. So there's really no communicating being done anyway, but there are still times when I just want to scream at him. I want to write him letters or send him emails reading him the riot act on what a huge piece of crap he is. But what would that do for me? Really? It might momentarily make me feel better, but he's not going to change. He's not going to apologize. Even if he did, it wouldn't mean anything. He really wouldn't care. And if I reacted to that stuff he was saying about me, then he would just use that to fuel his argument of how crazy I am. So I want to share two main things with you about this today, because I think it's really important and it's a work in progress for me. But first of all, we've talked about thoughts, feelings, actions, or think, feel, do here before. So we have a thought about a neutral circumstance. The thought triggers an emotion, and the emotion can fuel what we do. So here's the neutral circumstance. It's human says I'm crazy, for example. We know this is neutral because I, for one, happen to care a lot about what other people think about me, working on that. And someone else might just be like, whatever, and move on. Both reactions are to the same thing, but they're very different. So that circumstance is neutral. If somebody on the street that I didn't even know said, you're crazy, I'd be like, oh, okay, whatever. So those words are neutral. We give it meaning with our thoughts. So my thought about this might be, I'm not crazy, I hate him, or something like that. And that thought might create anger or rage or, hurt, whatever. Since anger can be what we call an iceberg emotion, there might be others underneath it, like feelings of inadequacy or unworthiness, rejection since he cheated, and was saying bad things about me, right? When I thought he cared about me and loved me. So here's where we have a choice when we pause to get intentional. If I weren't mindful and didn't pause, I might lash out in anger, which I have done before. I'm a human being. I'm not perfect by any stretch. I might send him a nasty email or talk negatively about him. Also something I have done, by the way, and wish I hadn't. I didn't take the pause. When I can take the pause, though, I can do two things. First, I can learn to sit with the emotion to actually feel it. Instead of, I don't want this feeling, it's more like, what is this feeling? So getting curious about it. Second, I can ask myself, who do I want to be in this situation? What's the bigger picture? What's truly important to me? So I personally want to be the person who has the utmost class. I'm not going to say what I think he is, because that would be going against what I'm talking about in this episode. But I personally want to be the person who has the utmost class. I want to take the high road. I want to know in my bones that this kind of behavior is childish, immature, and super manipulative. And I just want to walk away from it with that being good enough for me. Not my monkeys, not my circus kind of thing. Good riddance, kind of laugh it off. Out of my life. Don't want that anymore. Not good for me. Unhealthy, go. So what does that require? It requires an unshakable connection to myself. It requires a relationship with myself, one built on unconditional love and self-compassion. It requires that I have confidence that who I am is enough, more than enough, worthy of love and belonging. It requires that I love and accept myself for all that I am and am not. So really, when you notice that you have this reaction to what others say about you, it's a good sign to turn inward and ask yourself why it bothers you. There's a wounded part of you that gets triggered when you hear negative things about yourself. Totally. And a lot of times that comes from our childhood relationships and upbringing. For me, totally connected. So here's the thing. We all create this protective self, and our protective self is always going to work really hard to prove that we aren't what we think our flaws are. For example, if you feel like really inadequate or really unwanted, your protective self is going to try to prove the opposite. It's going to push you to do things that prove that. So in my case, this relationship was emotionally abusive and based on control and manipulation to the point where I started to believe I was crazy too. So it makes sense that if someone says I'm crazy, especially him, I'm going to want to prove I'm not. And that's going to be my default to go into proving energy. So also, the protective self needs to feed itself with external things. So the problem with this is that the external things only hit the protective self, only feed that protective self. It's like an armor. Those things don't actually make it through to our true self. So no matter how much validation I try to get to prove I'm not crazy, my protective self will always need more of that. So it's never ending. So you have to build the relationship with your true self and look within for validation, love, and belonging by loving and accepting yourself fully. That's unconditional love for yourself. And this is what's going to help you take that pause that will enable you to respond like a class act and take the high road. Pausing and giving yourself that unconditional love and self-validation that you are indeed an amazing human being. And just because someone else wants to say mean, untrue things about you, that's really more about them and their character than you. So stay strong in your integrity and know that they don't really have any. And that's not about you. That's their own shortcomings and flaws. And actually, what they're doing to you or saying about you is what they're trying to feed their protective self with, because they're trying to prove something about themselves too. So it's really about them. And that's sometimes really hard to get your head around. I know for me, it's still a work in progress because it hurts so bad. So the second thing I've learned from all of this is that not everyone is going to like you. Not everyone is your person, and that's totally okay. Hard maybe, but okay. The people who are your people will hear the talk, and they'll know it's not true. And that's all that really matters. My friend Kathy always says, if I don't respect you, then why would I even care about your opinion? I don't respect my ex, and I certainly don't respect his girlfriend for a number of reasons, and I don't respect his friends either. So why would I care what they say or think? And when I say I don't respect his friends, there's a small circle of friends he has that I know that talk about me in this way, so I don't respect them, and so why would I care? The people who know me well, who are also people I respect, don't think those things about me. And those are the people who matter to me, not the people I don't respect. My friend Karen, who I had a wonderful brunch with yesterday, we were talking about how we need to have healthy people in our lives, surround ourselves with healthy people. The people who are toxic and disrespectful and mean and don't really take the time to get to know the real us, those are not healthy people. Those are not people that we need in our lives. So we have to set boundaries around that. And sometimes that boundary is showing up as a class act, taking the high road. It's removing yourself from that fray and riffraff. You have to stay strong in your authenticity and your integrity. You need to lean into your values. Again, who do you want to be here? For me, my values in this case might lean towards authenticity, integrity, self-respect, peace, calm, and maybe like in control of myself, of my emotions, not like being controlling in a, control freak kind of way, but just in control of myself. Since emotions can fuel actions, I can focus on what actions might be created from feeling those feelings, and then I can practice taking those actions. It's like showing up as the person I want to be before I'm actually that person. Sort of like a fake it till you make it kind of thing. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's really important. So make a point of showing up as the person I want to be, even though it might be hard. And the self-compassion, love, and acceptance comes in for the part of you that got triggered. The part of you that believes the crappy stuff you're hearing. Because there is that part of us, right? There's that wounded part of us that will always kind of like leave the door open to hear that. And we have to be really vigilant about that. So lots of self-compassion and love for that part of you, because that part of you is wounded. It really needs to be nurtured and cared for. I want to say a little bit more about values. I mentioned values. I've talked about that on the podcast before a little bit, but I love the idea of values because they're like a compass. They can really keep us on the path we want to be on. When we're connected to our values, it's how we find meaning and purpose in life. And so when we are using those qualities as a compass, we're always able to sort of course correct. If we get into a situation like this relationship that I was in, and this is probably another episode, but it never was a super healthy relationship. And I think I knew from pretty early on that it wasn't something that I should be in. And I didn't have the courage to be connecting with my values. I sort of talked myself out of it. So like self-respect, for example, I did not align myself with self-respect. If I had had the courage to do the hard things like leave, I would have been connecting with that value and other ones too. Although that's a different story because narcissistic personalities tend to pull you back in when you try to break up with them. So if you've ever dealt with someone like that, you are probably nodding your head right now wildly so it makes it really easy to doubt your own intuition. And so values, though, when you can take that pause and really get intentional about what's my bigger picture, what do I want to do here? Who do I want to be? What's really important to me here? Like I mentioned, self-respect. Okay. So maybe that means like sometimes it might mean communicating a boundary or, telling someone, I don't appreciate you talking about me that way. And that depends on you, right? For me, that's not an option for two reasons. One, protective order. Second, actually 3 reasons. Second, I don't have the time of day for this person anymore. And third, it's futile. Even if I said something, it wouldn't do anything for me or the situation. Yeah. So I have to suck it up. I have to say, okay, these people are saying some really crappy things about me and it hurts really bad, especially coming from people that I knew, some of them, and my ex who I thought loved me and I trusted him. And I have to really just suck that up and be like, oh yeah, it sucks. It hurts. It hurts really bad. And then, you sit with those feelings, cry, journal, move your body, things like that. So to recap all of this, when someone says something mean about you, it completely hurts. And you can honor that hurt for yourself by taking time to really feel those feelings that it brings up, which can be really hard. I get that. I've had certainly a lot of that lately, and it's really hard, and sometimes people don't understand it. But you need to feel your feelings how you feel them. And I know that they're scary sometimes. It can feel like, oh God, this is never going to go away. And it can be, for some people, I'm one of those people, those emotions can be really, really overwhelming. So you have to do some work with that. You have to learn some mindset stuff about how these emotions aren't going to hurt you. They're just like waves. They're going to come and go. Have some tools in your tool belt to be able to regulate them or tolerate them if you need some of those skills. I have a lot of them and I can chat with you about that. So reach out if you'd like some of that. But you have to let that move through you. It's so hard, but emotions are energy and they just want to move through our bodies. And it's sometimes, like I keep saying this, but sometimes it's really hard to let that happen. We tend to kind of contract, and if you think about like a fist, tight fist. If you try to put something through the hole in your fingers when you're making a fist, and clenching it, no, you can't get anything through, right? But when you relax, your hand relaxes, then things can move through there. It's the same thing with emotions. They just need to move through you. They're an experience that we're having. They're not us. Again, that takes practice to really own that because it is hard. I know I keep saying that, but I get it. You can also then ask yourself about the bigger picture. Is lashing out or defending or explaining worth it? If you're dealing with a narcissistic personality, it's absolutely not. And you should just walk away from that. Yeah. So who do you want to be here? What actions do you need to take to be that person? Taking the high road is so much classier. It can be really hard, especially when you're dealing with someone who wants to trigger you to get a reaction. But with practice, you can get to the point where you can practice mindfulness and self-awareness in the moment. You can take that pause and then you can make those values aligned choices. I hope that was helpful, my friends. And as always, I love to hear your suggestions or requests for topics, so please send them my way. And please, friends, if you are enjoying the show or finding it helpful, please share it with a friend. You never know who it might help. Have a great day, my friends, and I will see you next time. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Real, Brave, and Unstoppable. If you'd like to learn more about creating an authentic life that's true to who you are, visit CourtneyRivard.com/lovelife to download your free guide on how to build your vision and create a life that you love. You'll be so glad you did. I'll see you next time.